Drink and Draw Happy Hour with our fun time members, Dan Panosian, Jeff Johnson, and the illustrious Joe Quesada. Absent this evening is the Reverend Dave Johnson, our spiritual leader, as he is airborne on his way to Connecticut. But he's with us right here.
Hi, Dave.
How's everybody doing this evening?
Pretty good, man.
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Could be better.
Can't we all?
Could be better.
Yeah, always.
So,
hopefully Dave's watching on the plane. I know he requested online Wi-Fi, as they call it in Europe.
Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
I had a dog named Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I hope it was a poodle.
Jeff has a cat that's currently Wi-Fiing.
I have a cat, a brand new cat. We rescued it from the street.
That's
You sure it's a cat?
We are sure it's a cat.
It's not like a raccoon or a possum?
No, it's 4 weeks old. It's barely alive. We're doing the whole thing where you feed it like milk, a little stopper and everything. It's cute though.
It's adorable.
Is it your first cat, Jeff?
No, this is I think maybe 4 or 5.
Like simultaneously or in a row, or?
Well, I've had up to 3 cats at a time, but
Right.
we've been cat free for a while, and this is definitely the youngest kitten I've ever had.
Why do you keep killing them? I don't get it.
Yeah.
Well, I get tired of them. It's a little black cat. So according to our friend Steve Jones, it's bad luck.
Right.
Yeah. Do you remember that story? Steve Jones was actually one of the original Drink and Draw crew, but for various reasons, none of which he'll ever disclose, I think he only made it to like maybe 2 or 3. But I got you a very strange thing at a flea market called the Devil Dog.
Yeah, you bought it for me because it was the ugliest thing you'd ever seen.
Yeah, so I got it for you as a gift for your birthday.
Yeah.
And it freaked Jones out because he's very how would you describe his? I mean, not paranoid is not the word. It's just superstitious.
He's spiritually cautious.
It's a great way to describe him.
Yeah.
So one day, Joe, Jeff knew that eventually Steve Jones would destroy this object because he thought it was evil. So
Let's be honest, it was evil. It was totally cursed.
well, we called it the Devil Dog for a reason.
Yeah.
So Jeff was working at an animation studio, probably Warner Brothers at the time, and he had it perched up really high, so Steve couldn't get to it. He'd have to use like a ladder or something. But one day he angled it so every time Jones looked up from his cubicle, that Devil Dog would be staring at him.
Right.
That enraged it.
I did do that. Jones is a very sensitive man, and one of the things that I used to like to do is pretend like I tell him that my dogs had fleas, and so whenever I would sit next to him, I would like scratch at my leg and not say anything and just wait until he started scratching at his leg. Not a fan of evil sculpture or fleas.
Yeah, and so one time we were helping Jeff move, and what happened? Basically, he disassembled the Devil Dog, right?
He destroyed it and buried it separately in several pieces,
Yeah,
so as it could not come back to haunt him. Yeah. And he was right to do so. That thing was horrible.
I agree with you, but whoa, what
You
happened?
got it for me specifically because you thought it was hideous.
Joe bailed on us?
Joe Bill.
I'm here, guys. I'm trying to share my screen, and it won't let. Oh, there we go. Boom.
Yeah.
Much better. All right.
God, what's going on there?
I'm drawing for a change. How about that?
Oh, awesome.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So much
So Dan, what are you working on? What are you going to draw tonight?
Well, I guess we're looking at Joe's screen right now.
I like that.
I am in honor of Mr. Owlsley. I am doing I'm doing Iron Fist.
Cool.
So, Dan, do you want to break it to everybody out there?
It's gonna be
Yeah, you
some
want to
very
tell the
upset.
news, Dan?
There's gonna be some very upset people. I don't like to give bad news. Do you remember the X office? You'd never get bad news in that office. You just never hear about it.
Right.
it's similar to that. I'd rather just pretend it doesn't. It's not existing.
You're gonna you're just gonna let people figure it out on their own when he doesn't show up?
Yeah.
All right. That's one way to handle it.
Yeah. Whoops. Thing's gone.
Here's what I discovered. It's slowing down my screen.
Oh, it's the bandwidth.
Yes, and I raised the bandwidth too, so I'm not quite sure what's going on, but I'll pop in and out with progress.
So yeah, basically, our esteemed guest, this is probably our fault more than anything. He's on his way. He's got to get into a plane, so he can't. I don't think we got the memo properly. So.
Are you talking about Priest? Is that
I am talking about Christopher Priest.
See, the thing is, Priest doesn't have any social presence.
Mm-hmm.
So, he doesn't know that it's being advertised. He doesn't know we've been talking about it and all that sort of stuff. So,
he doesn't have a lot of online.
It's all via like tin can and string kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So.
Is he wanted by the government, or does he just not like that stuff?
No, he just hates it. He's not a social person.
He's a little bit like Jonesy Kitty in that regard. Jonesy Kitty is also Steve Jones, the guy we were talking about.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of social media being on there.
No.
I find that I'm not very good at it, keeping track of it, and
why do you think that is, Jeff?
I'm not very good at most things, Dan.
I mean, I didn't want to say anything.
Yeah, I think it's just par for the course, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
I mean, I draw okay, but other than that, I'm barely functional.
Yeah.
You're a good head of hair. So.
Yes.
Tremendous head. I've never knew a man who gets so many haircuts.
If I don't keep it short, it's like wearing a big, heavy hair helmet. Then I overheat and I faint.
It's like a chia pet.
Really? Your hair affects you that way?
It is. It's super thick.
Yeah.
High class problems.
I know, right?
So, for whatever reason, this is being on the stream is slowing down everything on my computer. So I'm going to try to fix this.
I had that problem last week.
I know this is going to upset some people, but I'm going to change my camera and then people are going to see me drawing. Is that okay?
I like the idea of it.
I prefer to look at that than you.
Dan, well, since we don't have a guest, maybe we could do something that I've been kind of thinking might be fun. Can you just, while you're drawing, maybe we can ask you questions about your process and you could talk about what you're drawing. And it can be more of an educational kind of one, and we can sort of chit-chat, and maybe I can get some secrets off of you.
Yeah, actually, in lieu of Priest being here, when Dan runs out of shit to tell us, I do have a storytelling, little seminar too, if you guys want.
Oh yeah, well let's throw that in whenever you're ready to do it, Joe.
Let's see Dan do something. Dan never does anything during the streams. Let's make him work a little bit.
I don't like to really stream it up.
Well, I think we could. I think since you have to, if you're the boss, you have to fill in the space that Christopher's not here.
Yeah.
Well, I mean that was Joe's responsibility, and Joe and I are going to probably have a really long talk after this.
Yeah.
I can see that happening.
Sure.
But here I'm drawing Iron Fist right now.
Yeah.
Let's see it.
There
you go.
So I can tell you about my process. There, as you can see, I don't know if you can see, but there's not a whole lot of pencil on the page.
So you finish mostly with when you say, like, I've watched you do that before, and you don't put a lot of pencil in, and the ink, you seem to already know what you're going to draw. Do you have a picture in your head, or are you just so comfortable with your hand doing all the work?
I think it's like, well, when you're penciling, you're coming in with all that hatching anyhow, and how many times do you really erase, the penciling that you do from hatching? Not too often. So I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna with the way I draw. I don't think it's too bad to just go with the first thoughts I have regarding the hatching.
So you're just samuraiing it through.
I'm a master, Jeff. I guess as it's described. No, I guess so. You can say that. I'm trying to literally just, go with my gut.
I like that. All right. So you're basically finishing it with the ink as opposed to.
I'm penciling with ink. In a sense.
You're drawing on the ceiling in your camera view right now.
Is that what it looks like?
Does a little bit.
You're inverted.
Well, I mean, it's the only way the thing looks upright. Otherwise, it's going to look like this if I flip it around. So.
All right. Do you, when you're throwing in the ink lines, Dan, do you already have a light source in mind?
Yeah, like in this case, the light is coming this direction. So I'll be very bold with this part. And that's wrong. Where's my pen? So I'm going to start roughing in.
Dan, can you switch to the bigger version of the larger screen size for you so I can see it better?
Yeah. Let's see if I can.
Cool. Thanks.
Oh, now we're talking.
Yeah. All right. So your light is coming from the right-hand side of the page.
Mm-hmm. It's all coming from here. So
right.
we're giving Iron Fist, and this is business Iron Fist. This is everybody's favorite Iron Fist, right?
I like that.
Everyone's.
The crotch shot.
This is. I mean, a lot of people will request this at conventions. I don't know why.
Yeah.
They're like, you give it. I like regular Iron Fist, but how about business Iron Fist? And I'm like, are you sure? And they're like, do I look like I'm sure? Some people get angry when I ask them.
Well, you always do look like you're joking. That's the problem.
Yeah, they go, yes, I'm sure. You do the best business Iron Fist we've ever seen.
Have you ever professionally drawn Iron Fist, Dan?
I have. I did some. I think it was Brave and the Bold.
For DC?
No. Let's see if anybody would catch that. No, there was it wasn't Power Man and Iron Fist, but it was.
Is it Marvel Team Up?
No, they Iron Fist was kind of sharing a comic, and Scott Collins was doing it.
So was it 2-in-1?
Yeah, it was from a while ago. It was this late 90s, and so I got to actually draw it. So I was pretty psyched. So now I'm putting in, his shirt is open. This is the way.
The way the fist.
This is the way Tony Donnelly, who's another big draw guy, operates. Like, we're probably going to go out with Tony tonight, and he probably won't be. He'll be very buttoned down.
You think?
Oh yeah.
You think Tony will not have the pectorals exposed?
No. That's what I meant. I meant he will.
The buttons will be down. Is that what you're saying?
We'll see all of Tony Donnelly, or enough of them.
Interesting.
Pages of drunkenness as he goes. Yes.
Yeah.
So then, when you're throwing down the blacks, is there a balance that you're looking for, or a compositional reason for the black? Is it just the light?
I think it's just the light. I'd like to say I was a little bit more like a what's his head, Mignola, where he kind of, that's his whole style, but. Because I think I come from a background of inking, it's so important to me to kind of demonstrate that I can draw the figure that it pains me to put a lot of shadow in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have a problem with it too. I totally have a hard time spotting blacks.
Yeah.
I get lost in my own shapes.
Yeah, I get kind of excited, and then Joe, you always do a great job of utilizing. Enough black in your work, enough shadow, and if you're really good at it, like Joe is, you're using that to guide the eye.
Yeah, Joe, definitely you do that. Like the patterns that you have are not just the black and white from the light, but they guide the storytelling in a really interesting way. Does that take a lot of planning, or do you sort of do that automatically?
Where is he? Oh, you know what? Joe is off the screen.
Not just winging it.
All right.
He's winging it. He's trying to. Maybe we'll go on Jeff right now.
All right.
Oh,
Oh, look at that.
Whoa, look at that.
That was clearly the one we should have been focusing on the entire time. Right?
No, I like the Iron Fist.
Yeah, but yours is a little bit more interesting. Let's be honest.
Let's see if we have any questions here. Let's see if we have
Well,
any
it's
questions.
bigger.
If you like to draw big,
I do. Well, I think you never like when I draw on the computer, it's all pretty much within a very small screen space, and the same with the panel. This allows me to use my shoulder, and it's easier to see, and it's just different. Like I haven't, it's when I was a kid, I always wanted to do murals, but never really got a chance to.
now, do you remember when we got to do that illustration for that bar downtown?
Oh yeah, what King Eddie's?
Yeah, and we got to paint, and
That was a good time.
Yeah,
That was
you
absolutely.
not typically painting stuff, so it was kind of interesting.
It was cool to do art for art's sake, like just to take the Bukowski poems and try and come up with cool images.
Yeah, this was this old bar in downtown LA, and they had what was really kind of cool about it is during Prohibition, there were all these tunnels from a lot of these places that became speakeasies, and there would be tunnels into the Biltmore where they used to do the Oscars. And so this place, since we were doing paintings for it, they wanted to keep it that same flavor. They were going to open up a downstairs bar in the cellar where the speakeasy used to be, and there were guarded tunnels, and you could still go through them, and you could probably make your way all the way to the Biltmore and other different locations in Los Angeles. And
Right.
How long, Jeff, you'd know this, how long actually was Prohibition?
Oh, it wasn't that long,
It wasn't, I mean, that's the amazing part to me. Like,
right? Wasn't it like 6 or 8 years?
yeah, it wasn't like this was a monster amount of time, but the amount of time it must have taken to tunnel this thing, people must have thought, you know what, Prohibition's never going to end. We better build some tunnels. We got to escape the cops. I mean, bootlegging is like legendary, and it really only went on for a few years. Like all of Boardwalk Empire is basically based on that whole bootlegging time.
One of the things I like most about the King Eddie is that the upstairs bar was, I mean, it was great. It was a lot of fun. Good, cheap beer. But like during Prohibition, the front was a piano store.
Yeah, they changed the place. It started off as a bar, then Prohibition happened, and they had to change it into a piano store. That's normal, right? That's logical.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess as a front, it worked.
Yeah. You don't have a lot of people. You don't have a lot of cops snooping around the piano bar.
That doesn't seem too
Piano store.
piano store.
Yeah.
We have an audience question.
I'm not trying to ignore you guys. I'm just trying to get myself technically up and running.
Yeah, take your time.
Let me know anytime you want me to switch your camera over, Joe, and we can go.
Yeah.
Would you guys like a question from our studio audience?
Sure.
Go for it.
Our friend Agus, who often has good questions, says, imagine you can time travel. What's the piece of advice you would give to your younger self who's starting into comics to spare him countless hours of suffering?
I would say
Pay your taxes.
Don't go into comics.
Yeah, I would say put a separate. Actually, be a better business person.
yeah.
Pay your taxes, fill out all your forms, do all that stuff. The amount of times that I was like, oh shit, I didn't do anything all year long, and now I have to pay the price. Took a long time to figure that out. Go to business school.
Joe was always really good at it. Joe had a good business head early on.
A lot of guys did. You were way better at it than I was, for sure.
What?
And you were way better at it than I was.
But I was no Mr. Quesada. I was smart enough that I invested a lot of real estate. I knew that those days would end, and so I'd have to fall back on something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think one of the smartest things business stuff aside, I think one of the smartest things I did was I also, I broke in later. Comics weren't necessarily what I wanted to do. So when I got in, I remember I was coloring at Valiant, and I was just sitting there, and there was a bunch of colors in the room, and every once in a while, one of the pencilers would drop off their portfolios, and penciling is really what I wanted to do. ultimately in comics. So it didn't matter who came in. I would always ask them a ton of questions, but the questions I asked were less about like, what did you do right, and more along the lines of what did you do wrong? What were the mistakes you made? Much like this question. And I learned a ton of stuff. Because if you ask those questions, most artists will love to tell you exactly some of the mistakes that they make going along the way. Sure. And if you pay attention, you could literally shorten your path to breaking in by, number one, doing the work, and number two, by listening to those mistakes and saying, oh, I'm not going to make that. I remember, I don't remember who the penciler was, but I remember hearing the story from 2 or 3 other pencilers afterwards. And this is at a different time, of course, in comics, when people bring their portfolios. Remember those times when guys would bring their portfolios to the conventions, right? And that's where jobs were given, or careers were started.
I remember sneaking my portfolio, or not sneaking, but bringing it into the offices in New York. Yeah,
that too. At conventions, and this was, and even as a novice trying to break in, this seemed so ridiculous to me, right? But an artist told me, look, if you want a job at DC, bring DC samples. If you want a job at Marvel, bring Marvel samples. And I'm like, why? He's like, well, and he tells me his experience, and I hear the exact same story from other artists, which was, I went to the DC booth and I had Spider-Man pages, and the editor said to me, these pages are great, but I'd love to see what you could do with one of our characters. Right? And I'm sitting there going, that makes no sense whatsoever. Or they went to an X-Men editor and they had a Spider-Man pages, and the X-Men editor says, this is really great, but I'd love to see what you could do with a team, right? Kind of get that one a little bit more, but literally, it's like, if the pages are good, right? Yeah. If you're an artist and you come to me, and it's nothing but Batman stuff, but it's otherworldly,
right?
You're working at Marvel. Well, you're hired. You're going in. I could not understand that mentality. So when I put my portfolio together, which, by the way, was the portfolio that Jim Owsley saw and hired me on the spot, and Jim Owsley is Dan?
He is Christopher Priest.
Christopher Priest, right.
Yeah, that's how we met, you and I.
So I created this portfolio, and it's only 12 pages long. And someday I'm going to actually put this in a book, or I'm going to teach this as a class on building the perfect portfolio, because it's a way to do it. I think that, and again, as someone who's had, young artists bring me tons of stuff, I see guys and gals come in with like portfolios of 20, 30, 40 pages. And here's the hard truth. The hard truth is, any editor worth their salt, any art director worth their salt knows by the second page whether you have, either you're ready to be hired right on the spot, or you have something it's worth watching, sending you home with some good advice. And unfortunately, in some cases, you may not make it ever at all, right? Depending on your age, your desire, your attitude there while you're getting the review. Those are the hard facts. So I see artists come in with like 20, 30, 40 pages, and I'm like, and I warn them ahead of time, listen, I'm not going to look at this entire portfolio. Show me your most current stuff.
Right.
So I feel bad because they've spent all this energy on, and it's not about quantity. If they show me 4 incredible pages, I'm going to want to see 4 more. And so it's really about maximizing your effort. So I do have this theory and philosophy for creating a portfolio that's no more than 12 pages. And if that portfolio doesn't get you hired, those 12 pages are going to be enough of a variety of stuff that an editor will be able to narrow down the things you need to work on, so that when you go home, you don't have to work on 40 more pages. You can work on 4, 10, 12 pages and just redo your portfolio, and you're ready to go by the next convention. If that's where you're showing stuff, or if you're mailing it in, you're ready to send stuff back in another month, which is also the kind of stuff that editors like to see. I know I'm rambling on a little bit about this, what Dan draws, but I can't seem to draw anything on my machine today. The other thing the editors love to see is when, I've had artists come back to me convention after convention, and you remember people, and I have people email me stuff, and you remember people. And if you see the same pages over and over again, you start thinking about, well, the production isn't there. And that's kind of scary as well, because, you need people who are just going to kind of churn it out. So you want to see that as well. And then the other thing, one of the biggest things is when you're getting reviewed, and this is a truism that I've yet to see anyone disprove on any level. You can have the greatest portfolio ever. How you take the critique is so telling. There are kids that come in and you give them a critique, and I tend to be blunt. I don't like to waste time because I always want people to be blunt with me. So I just want to tell you what's good, what's bad. Get to work, right? Go do it. And I've had artists who have sat there and argued with me about like, well, you don't know, you really don't know.
I hate that. I hate like if how many times have you given someone like, okay, this is great, do it this way, this is a mistake here, and they tell you what they were going for,
yes,
and why you didn't get it. Like, okay,
then don't go for it. Just do it. If you already know it, then don't bring this portfolio to me, right? So, but that's less. I get that. That's insecurity speaking, and we've all been there at some point.
Sure.
But when you're, I've seen it happen to me. I've seen it happen to other editors, and I had this one kid. I forget what convention it was, and he showed me his stuff, and he was just like critiquing my critique. And I said, listen, go with God, do what you got to do. I'm telling you what I think. And he went away. Then a year later, I see him again. And he brings his portfolio to me, and it's almost the exact same pages. So I said to him, listen, I remember you. What do you want me to say? And he was still argumentative, and he moved on. And I didn't give him a lot of time because it was a waste of effort. So you could sometimes, your attitude as you're getting the critique, right? I'm a big advocate of, take all the stuff that they say is wrong, all of it. You will inherently know in your heart of hearts. We all know this, right? When we have our books go out there and people critique our stuff, and we'll read a lot of stuff, and we're like, I could see the point, maybe not. And then there's certain things that someone will say, and it hits you right here, because you in your heart of hearts know that it's true, that you screwed it up, or you didn't quite nail it. So when you listen to those critiques, put it all together, add that stuff to the next batch of artwork or writing or whatever it may be that you do. Improve on it. Take those lessons. I talk about, whenever I lecture about this, I talk about my daughter being a figure skater. She's a figure skater, which means that she spends 3/4 of her skating life on her ass, right? Jumping, falling, jumping, falling, jumping, falling, jumping, falling, just to nail that one jump in that one important moment during a performance, during a competition, whatever it may be. That's what it is, right? That's the job. It's not just picking yourself, by the bootstraps after you've fallen and you failed and you get up there and you do it again. The job is also learning how to fall correctly, right? Learning what to take from that fall and apply it to the next one. If you learn how to fall correctly, if you learn how to fail correctly, then if you got the talent, right? A modicum of talent with that kind of attitude will take you to the ends of the world. You can have all the talent in the world. You could be a savant. You could be Leonardo da Vinci reincarnated. If you don't have that kind of attitude, nobody's going to want to work with you, and you're not going to improve. You're going to get to a stage, and you're done. And we see
that sounds like Dave's problem to me.
Wait, is he Leonardo da Vinci incarnated?
Yeah, a lot of people were saying that about him.
That's funny. But Joe, I think you're totally right, Joe. Like the idea of like I've seen a bunch of portfolios, and I give two, especially when it comes to storyboards and just the storytelling aspects of stuff, because that's such a complicated but yet easy to learn part of it, right? Like I think the storytelling is probably more complicated and harder to do than the drawing itself, but the theories they're easy to learn, they're easy to apply, and it's when someone starts to reject the very fundamentals of storytelling because they're trying to do something with their art that I'm always like, okay, well this review's over.
Yeah, and look, there's a lot of artists like that out there, right, working professionally, who it's really it's more about selling the original art than it is about telling the story in sort of a classical manner, and that's fine. Listen, whatever works. Totally. But not my favorite kind of thing. Dan,
Yeah, that's my whole thing.
Is selling the original art.
When we talk about like drive and desire and work ethic and stuff, Dan, I'm going to kiss your ass a little bit because
Please.
I was at lunch with some Marvel editors a couple of weeks ago, and I brought up your name, and everybody sneered and said, "Oh, Jesus."
They hate it. They can't pronounce it, so they have a problem there.
Ocean or Penition or and I said to the guy, I said, I've known Dan for years, and he's one of those guys that I'm so proud to know because you were terrible when you started. No, you
not good.
You have worked your ass off to get to the point where you are. You know what I mean? You're a master with the brush and with the pen and as a draftsman and your storytelling gets better every day. I mean, you've really worked at it. So I'm just saying that out loud, just to give you a little something, Dan.
I appreciate that very much.
I've been telling him that for years, Joe. He doesn't listen to me.
Well, I listen to Joe.
That's true.
It's the nicest thing anyone said to Dan in years.
Yeah,
it's true. It's
true.
true.
I mean, really, I've seen Dan's art progress over the years, and to the point now where he's reached that level of mastery where it's kind of effortless, and there's that whole 10,000 hours thing. I think we talked about it here, at one point.
Yeah.
And Dan, I don't know if you felt this, or Jeff, if you felt this. Ben, I know you haven't. But have you guys ever? I mean, I realized there was a point one day when I was drawing, and the only way I could describe it like is if you do a drive to a particular place, whether it's your job, your home, whatever it may be, something that you do on a regular basis, and then you ever do this thing where you get in the car and then you arrive where you're supposed to arrive, and you forgot everything in between. You don't ride it all.
Yeah.
Right? And if that's freaky, right? Because you could have run over little ladies or puppies or whatever it may be, or Dave Johnson wandering aimlessly. And there was a day where I started on a cover in the morning, and by the time I was done with it, I looked up and it was like 10 at night, and I have no recollection of going.
I love that. I love that stage.
That's what they call the zone.
The zone, yeah. But I think that's also, you can't reach. A very senior artist, when I started, once said to me, "You will never do your best work until you have complete and utter disregard for it," right? Where you just don't. And now you tell a young artist that, right? Any young artist listening to this, I guarantee you, I know what you're going to do. You're going to go home and you're home and you're going to start drawing, and you're going to be like, "I don't care about what I'm drawing. I'm going to be loosey goosey." You're still incredibly obsessed with what it is that you're drawing. It doesn't happen like that, right? So I spent weeks trying to disregard my drawing. And
you were desperately trying to be zen about it.
Yeah, and when I did that cover, as you say, the zone, or is it the 10,000? And I sort of timed how many years I've been in the business, how many books I did. I'm like, oh, that's kind of like almost like 10,000 hours. It really sort of worked out. And then I realized I just flashed back to that moment of like having complete and utter disregard for the work. And that's not a negative. It's just.
I'm with you on that. My best inking and finishing, because all my pencils at this point are basically roughed in, and it's all determined whether or not how I do the finish. And in some cases I tighten up if it's a character or maybe it's a cover or a book that's very much like a superhero book as opposed to something like The Punisher or Elektra or a more organic character like, say, Logan, even though he has mechanical claws. But no, I'll get, like, if it has a cape, I get a little bit nervous, and my default mode is to go very commercial and what I imagine like a House Marvel or DC or Image look would be, as opposed to like letting myself just, like you were saying, Joe, make some mistakes and just be free with it, because then that flow part of you kind of comes out, and good things start happening because you're relying 100% on your artistic instincts that you've honed over the years. And actually, I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast, and he's very into jiu-jitsu. He's very into seeing how far the mind and the body, all the limits that man or woman can achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this, they were talking one day about, they didn't have I don't think they have a term for it, but when it comes to art, I've been doing this and trying this theory. It's called micro training. And there's certain things that give artists trouble, like say hands or feet or drawing a horse. And what I remember years ago, I was drawing Prophet and working for Image, and I actually had Jeff fly out to the beach so he could teach me how to draw hands.
I remember that.
It still didn't help. It didn't help. What happened was I started saying, well, I'm going to
call me.
Yeah. I was like,
I think I was just closer.
Yeah, I'm gonna draw hands for 20 minutes every day. Mm-hmm. And after a certain amount of weeks, that 20 minutes translates into a certain amount of hours, and it's otherwise you're not really training, you're not attacking your weaknesses that way. And so I started working on all my weaknesses. Another thing Jeff used to tell me, which is a great motivator for me, is doing pencils and doing finishes on people gave me this misguided sense that I was actually doing more drawing than I was. What I didn't realize is that even if it was the most simple of layouts, there's still something on the page. And the hardest thing, is every penciler can attest to, is that blank page. There's nothing there.
Blank page in the pitch.
So as an inker or a finisher, when you have something already there, of course you can expand on it and you can do all sorts of wonderful things. I was working with some pencilers. I'm like, oh, I'm bringing so much to this project. I'm blah blah blah. I'm a penciler, and in reality, I wasn't. So I had to teach myself all those hard things. And one of the things that happened was I had some go-to faces, and so anytime anyone would ask me to draw something at a convention, it would always be the same head. And Jeff, finally, I don't know. Jeff is like the kindest, most humble guy in the world, but he was like, he goes, let me guess what you're going to draw right now. And it was that same Wolverine John Byrne head that, was like a corner box illustration. And he says, have you ever considered a 3/4? And so I attempted to draw one, and I couldn't really that well. And I was like, okay, I have to start drawing the head from every single angle. And there is something to just attacking your weaknesses.
Yeah. Hey, Dan, did you ever try drawing with the mirror in front of you, like a small mirror?
I do a lot. Yeah, I use it for expressions.
Yeah, I got good at drawing hands real fast by doing. It's an old animator's trick. That was one of the things I learned I took a history of animation course in college, and it was one of the best things I learned was how the old time animators had a mirror right up there, and they would do their expressions and stuff. So I'd use that as my own, use my face as a model, but most importantly, those Kirby hand things, man. You start doing it in the mirror, or I'll do it here.
My fingers can do all sorts of crazy things too.
One of the things I love about that, Joe, is that the best artists do it, and you can always tell, like a Ditko hand. He was clearly drawing. He was doing whatever his hand was, or a Gil Kane hand, or the curve. Like you can always. I always picture them making that gesture while drawing it.
Yeah.
Joe, who was the artist who said, they were looking, people were all like, going, wow, I wonder how the folds on those pants go. Maybe it was Dave Johnson. He goes, gee, are you wearing pants right now? Just look
Just look down.
Folds are really hard to do. And a lot of times you're either looking at a photograph or you're looking at a mirror or you're bending, you're like, oh, that's simple. And then you can translate it to, whatever. A lot of folds on this. They're all.
I'm going to attribute this to Neil Adams. I think it was Neil who said it, or maybe he was quoting somebody else, or maybe somebody was quoting Neil about your style, your drawing style, how your drawing style is directly attributed to the things that you don't draw well, right? Wow. So think about it, because if you drew hands perfectly, if you drew faces, if you drew everything perfectly, you'd just be a photorealist. Yeah. So when you see somebody's style, and I'm not talking about like somebody, if someone's always like, doing pages where hands are cropped off the page because they don't want. It's people who are, whose styles are really just amazingly identifiable, it comes from a weakness which they turned into a strength, which is kind of fun. But if you guys want to, I mean, Dan, if you want to do some storytelling stuff, I can. I don't know if I could. I've been trying to switch my camera.
Here, you want to switch it, and I can.
All right, because I got a few things that maybe since we're priestless, I got a few things that. Oh, am I up?
Yep, you're up.
Oh, cool.
I'm up. Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the things that the last time I did this, one of the things I talked about a lot was left to right movement. Right. I see a lot of, especially these days, a lot of artists that have sort of been weaned on manga and anime. A lot of their action tends to go. My screen's gonna be operating slow, guys. I'm sorry, but it tends to go right to left. But here in Western culture, where we tend to read in this direction, this is something that filmmakers know. This is something that the best comic book artists know. This is something that I was very fortunate at a very early age at Valiant. I had Barry Windsor-Smith take like 20 minutes of his time to talk to me about some of this stuff.
Oh, wow.
And I had been to the mountain. I went to the mountaintop, and a lot of the stuff I was doing kind of instinctually, it just felt that right that way. But he really solidified it to me. So he talked about some of this Barry, some of this stuff that I've learned on my own, but he talked about left to right movement, right? In particular during action scenes.
What are you drawing in real quickly, Joe? What is that? What's that program?
Right now, this?
Yeah.
Well, this is a sketchbook.
It's not Procreate or?
No. I want to learn Procreate. I've had it for years, and I just haven't had the time to sit down and really work it out. But when you're working on action sequences, when you're working on moments where your character is. Let me see if I could. No, I want to race out. Where your characters are, sorry, this is really lagging. Punching, you want to try to have that left to right movement. Characters running, you want to try to have that left to right movement because subconsciously, the reader's eye, the reader's mind is perceiving that speed. There's a way to slow things down, and that's literally by going right to left, right? But right to left is really tough on the eye. And the brain, it sort of registers it in odd ways, and so you could use it though. You could use it in the sense of like if you're introducing a villain, if you're introducing a sort of wonky part of the story, because the mind perceives it as it's regression, it's going backwards in time, it's abnormality, it's a negative, right? And a lot of this has to do just simply with the way we read, right? So when you open a book. Right, you start in that left-hand corner, and when that book is over, you're on that right-hand corner. The progress of time, right? The progress of time is constantly going left to right, and these are tools that you could use as a storyteller. Believe it or not, and they've done research on this. I forget what the universities did research on this, but even when characters are speaking to each other, right, the left side is perceived weak, right? The right side is perceived as strong. It could also be perceived as bad and good, depending on how you arrange it, who the characters are, right? Same thing with movement, right? Character, you guys know this, right? When you do that sort of heroic pose, that's sort of that bird's eye. Let me see if I can get this darn thing working. Come on. That sort of heroic angle, right? We're sort of looking up at the hero.
Yeah. Because if you're looking up, that means whoever you're looking up at is bigger and larger than life.
Definitely, and they're looking down on you, right? And they're godly or whatever it may be. Weak and then sort of a subversive, again, sort of those down shots. If you want to do somebody sort of a lonely guy, right, standing by himself.
If you're drawing Jeff, yeah.
This is Jeff.
Always.
Hang on. Let me see. Hang on.
Make him small.
Make him tiny and powerless.
Slump his shoulders.
Yeah. And again, it's a way to convey story. We're in a 2D medium. Our stuff doesn't move. It's a way of conveying movement. It's a way of conveying emotion. I'm not even getting into lights and darks, right? Same thing. Characters walking towards you. Characters walking towards you. Again, perceived as strong. Characters walking away. Can be perceived weak in the moment. Also, just the size of character on the page. Within the panel. Sorry, this is cropping weirdly, but again, speeding it up, slowing it down. All these movements the movement and direction of your characters, and also the staging of characters. If you let's see, if you stage a scene, right, and your opening shot is, here's Dan. It's just so slow, guys. I'm sorry, I'm like dragging it. Here's Dan with his mullet.
Fast.
Hang on. There we go. Here's
Just
Dan.
with my mullet. I like it.
His t-shirt, right?
Yeah.
And then here's
Perfect.
Looks like a raw Captain America cover there.
here's Dave. I'll give him the baseball cap.
Yeah.
And let's give him a gut. Let's give him a little bit gut. Okay.
I love that.
Anyway, so if you open your scene here, right? There's, you guys know the 180 rule. We can go into that a little bit further, but staging is so important. For me, I make it a point to be clear as to who's talking first. Things that people don't take into account that artists have to take into account is, where your balloons are going to go, right? So if you're staging the scene, depending on if these characters are equal in nature, and Dave's the first one to talk, you may want to rearrange. And because, I constantly see stories like, where the balloon's up here and here. And, it drives me nuts
when it happens.
It drives me nuts when I see professionals do that. And by the way, sometimes it's not even the artist's fault, right? But again, you could use the motion and direction that your characters are going and your camera is going in so many ways. Let's see. All right.
Did you ever read that book, Joe, Panel by Panel?
No.
Panel by Panel is an interesting book because it's artists like Dave Mazzucchelli, Bill Sienkiewicz, all the top guys that have been in the business for a long time. And it's how they approach a page, how they approach storytelling, and it's from the moment they get the script to how they finish it. Obviously, not all of them are gems, but the book is called Panel by Panel, and it really helped me to understand how to break down a page.
Yeah, one of these days, there's an art how-to book in my future that I want to eventually write, with all my spare time. Just to finish off here, because I'm actually going to get to what you're saying, Dan. So again, placing a character sort of center in the panel here, that sort of vertical, layout really stops the eye. And you could use that a lot. If you want to slow the action down, if you want a reader to focus on something really important, it's a good technique to use. Let's see what I have here. But going back to any artist that doesn't read their entire script before they start drawing is doing it wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I don't understand how you would even do that.
I know people that do it. Blows me away because, hang on. Bendis, sorry, no, not happening. Not happening.
You'll never learn.
I sent them an email today saying, "Hey, stop screwing around. Come on the show. Be a guest on the show." And I haven't heard back, but this is what I get.
Typical.
So anyway, so you guys know I used to be a musician. So I always, the script to me is always something that I feel. I read it and I try to feel it like a musical piece. Mm-hmm. And every script, no matter what it is, every script has a crescendo. It's got harmonies. It's got competing melodies. By A and B story. And you take all this stuff into account. And the crescendo in a story could be, if it's a very slow story, a crescendo in a story could just be a kiss between two people. It could be, just a simple punch in the nose, depending on what that story is. But if you know all those things, then you can actually sort of build your story to that point and draw the reader. One more time on my screen, Dan. I don't know if I'm still on or not. But
nice.
This is some of that Miracle Man stuff that I showed a while back ago.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. So again, something happened here in my program. Everything got cropped tight. Let me try to find a page here. Now these are all screwed up.
Well, that's
I knew the crescendo one
we're talking about also leaving the eye with the black.
Oh, cool! Look at that. Nice.
Yeah, that's the crescendo of my story. Was some dude getting eviscerated by a lightning bolt.
Badass.
So,
Can you go through page one and land on that so we can see the progression and how you've built up?
I do have page one here. I'd have to open up another program. Yeah, but I showed 1 through 5 before. I'll try to give you a sense here of what's happening, even though some of this stuff is cropped away. The bad guy is in black. He's the only solid black in the story. You'll notice the rain going when the priest is in focus, the rain goes left to right. It's normality. When our bad guy's in focus, the rain goes left to right. This is all because of the staging that I thought of ahead of time. Abnormality, right? Malice, stuff is happening. That bottom panel is one of the few action moments, and it's just a little flick of the fingers, which knocks the priest ass over tea kettle. And again, that action, because I staged this in my head ahead of time, goes left to right to give you that sort of sense of speed and motion. You can't do here, unfortunately. The priest is cropped out of here. But this third panel is one of my favorite panels because I felt that was kind of Barry Windsor Smith smart a little bit in this one.
Nice.
Where the priest's eyeglass, his lens there shows you a close up of just how battered his face is.
Poor guy.
And again, the rain is put in strategically there to give you a sense of good and bad. And we start getting tighter and tighter to our characters. Our bad guy's getting really kind of miffed before, Father No Name is off to meet a savior. It's a little Photoshop magic. So again, we're cropped inappropriately here. And no, that's not George Harrison at the bottom. That's literally Grant Morrison. He sent me pictures of himself in the 80s, and he looked exactly like that.
It's weird. Grant used to send me pictures of him all the time. But we were never working on the story together. He would just send me random pictures.
He just thought you should have him.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And then the last page, again, it's cropped too tightly. Priest skull now in black. Our bad guy, who you can't, is cropped again. I would never crop a character like this. It's that vertical hold where you want the reader to just suck this image in. The other thing I didn't mention was the use of the lighthouse, which helped lock you into that space in those cliffs somewhere in the English coast. But just trying to apply practice what I preach, apply what I know.
Yeah, that's so cool, and I love seeing the very intelligently placed, black and white, and you don't often see. There's a few Mobius stories where you can take it and it's just like it's all linear, and then all of a sudden you see a little spotting of black somewhere. Yeah. You can follow that character anywhere because it's the only character, so he really knows how to guide the eye. This is a page I just finished up. It's a little bit counter.
I like that negative space there. Damn.
Well, it's not quite like. Let's see here. There's a little higher density. So, in this case, this V shape this negative space is drawing you into this panel right here. Yeah. And so these two people are talking, but we're looking at him because everything else is kind of dark, but he's light. So now we're looking to see where he looks, and he's looking over here. And then this panel's on a little bit of a slant, and now this guy is looking here. But now these two are both. This is going to be the person he's talking to on the phone.
Right.
There's going to be. I'm going to put in. I'll probably do it in the computer and put some jagged. Like you can't do a phone line like you used to. Years and years ago, you couldn't have a phone cord.
That cool curly Q thing, right?
Yeah, you can't do it. But what you can do is kind of a zigzag line, and I'll mess with the borders. They're not talking to each other. Sorry.
I don't even think you need a zigzag line. Are you coloring this yourself?
No, I'm not going to be coloring it.
If that top scene is sort of tropical and ochre colored, and that one panel where the guy's on the phone somewhere else is the opposite of that in the color scheme.
Yeah, then you'll know it's
right away. It's not the same place.
Exactly. Yeah, and so they get off the phone, and then there's just. A lot of times I haven't. If you're working with a great colorist, you can get away with a lot more. So.
That bottom panel is gorgeous because your eye goes
right there.
You sense the swing of the door without there being. I hate motion lines. I'm sorry, I take that back. I hate motion lines in my work. People use it all the time, and it's great. But I'm not a big a big fan of them in my work. So when you get that sense of motion without a motion line, and you can just see, and you sense his eyes going right to those flowers. Those are flowers, right in the corner.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome.
Thanks. Here, I'm gonna, and then the next page. So we're not gonna. You won't be able to see what that is, but opens up, and then the flowers are kind of implying something of a little bit of feminine nature to the story.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is a very this book is just filled. It's very, very violent. And then so the next panel, this woman is waiting in this hotel room for him, and that's what you see. So it's kind of broken up in that way.
Yeah.
But
I love that one. Yeah, you showed me that one before. That one's badass.
Yeah.
I grabbed all my wife's awesome coffee table books here, so I could make it appropriate. But this is kind of a weird reverse sort of thing. But I'm still trying to guide the eye, And
establishing shot is there a lot of text on the top panel?
On the top panel, there doesn't really have to be, which is not a bad thing. I think there's a little bit, but it's a new scene, and so you want to breathe again, and so having a bigger panel with all that open negative space, which will probably be, beautifully rendered sky, kind of slow things down a little bit.
Yeah, Mignola does this thing where two people will be talking for several pages, and then suddenly there'll be a panel of a statue.
Oh yeah, he's brilliant at that.
Exactly. Slows everything right down. He used to do that also. Was Frazetta would put like a really cool, like Remington statue in the foreground, and then it would give you a sense of environment and style, and it was very cool.
You remember when I did that in the X-Men, Dan, that you worked on? I stole that idea.
Yeah.
The board, like I took. Okay, this conversation scene is important, but it's not that exciting. But to even add to the subtext of what's happening in the conversation scene, I added a statue of it might have been like was a guy on a horse, a bronco, or something to show like to the subtext of the conversation.
Do you remember my brilliant idea for you when I couldn't pencil, Jeff?
Yeah, Dan always wanted me to draw everything as though it was through the eyes of a fly.
I was like, Jeff would go, Jeff, in any script that had a kitchen in it, somehow Jeff would magically get that scene.
I did a lot of kitchens.
To draw a kitchen. And he was getting a little bit bored with it because he had drawn more kitchens than anyone in comics at this point. And me having not drawn really too many comics, like maybe 4 at this point, I was like, Jeff, you got to find your love for the medium again. Imagine if we were following a fly through the story. Sometimes we see his little fly wings or something, and all from the perspective of a house fly.
It is a brilliant idea.
Nothing bothered you more than whenever I brought that up.
Yeah, because I can't draw that way. I can't. I'm not that good. I can't do the fly eye view and it's too much. I couldn't handle it.
Well, what's funny is that could just be an aerial view. I don't know why for me it had to be a fly. Like nobody would realize that that's actually from a fly's perspective or like a drone. But I thought it was the most brilliant idea in the world. I thought it was revolutionizing comic books.
Since we've been talking so much, we didn't really answer any questions, and there's been some stuff here.
All right.
Let's see if there's Ben, you find anything?
Yeah, there's Reed Troutman is wanting to know on comics that are translated into cultures that read from right to left. And Joe, this is probably something you've dealt with at some point. What kind of challenges are there in making the book look right?
I wish I knew the answer to that, but since we don't translate the books ourselves and we license out a lot of that stuff, I think those things are handled locally in those territories. So I honestly don't know the answer to cop out on everybody. Sorry.
When I was doing Way of the Rat for CrossGen, one of the goals was to actually, it didn't happen, but there was a tentative deal to have it published in China.
Right.
And so to deal with the flipping back and forth, instead of flipping the art, I did a lot of horizontal panels. So it would 5 stacked panels. so that most of the drawing was vertical, and that it didn't matter, so you wouldn't lose storytelling. That was my solution to doing it. But I know the guy who drew Blade of the Immortal. Do you guys ever read that comic?
Yeah, sure. Great comic. I got some here.
So that's originally in Japanese, and when it was translated into English, he actually redrew a ton of pages.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So they wouldn't be flipped.
I'd like to flip you.
I don't blame you.
Maybe when you come down here soon.
Sure. Yeah, we're gonna go to the fights.
That's a cool Electro.
Hey Dan, you know what?
What? We're at our hour mark.
I'm still a bit upset. I gotta be honest with you.
What happened?
Well, we were texting the other day, and you're like, "Hey, I gotta go. I'm making dinner for Ben and his family."
True.
And
seems weird.
he hasn't made dinner for me.
I've never made dinner. Ben's in my house right now. Ben's in the living room.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay.
How was dinner?
Yo,
Ben?
I definitely think you should have dinner made for you. But if you ever have the chance, have Dan make breakfast. He's way better at that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. He never invited me to his home either.
He didn't really invite me.
I think it's a Cuban thing. I think it's just he's
Look at this. Look at this. This magic
Wow.
of
Look at
television.
that. Wow.
Nice.
Dan, you're having a much better time than I did with Frank in my place.
Oh yeah. All right. Not everybody.
I don't think no one's ever actually touched Ben. That's the first time, and it's also now on camera, so it's unusual.
I don't know how I feel about it.
If you go to
Kinda
give
like
Ben
it.
a hug, hand comes out
That's
immediately.
it. That's it.
I hear you, Ben. I feel you.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I'll definitely hear about that later.
it's mostly because Dan doesn't shower on a regular basis.
No.
Before we go out tonight, we're gonna hit. Remember our special guest Josh Barnett?
Yes.
We're gonna meet with Josh later for some drinky drinks.
Josh
That's
can
what
hug.
Josh calls him.
Josh can hug me all he wants.
Well, no
You
one's gonna
could
take.
stop him even if you wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah, we call them drinky drinks. Well, that's what he forces us to say that.
Well, they're mostly Shirley Temples.
Yeah. And then
Yum.
Josh does a lot of giggling. So
It's a giggly.
he loves to giggle, that guy.
Talks about hair products.
Yeah.
Good time.
All right.
So Dan, what's the deal? You never invited me to your house. Never made me dinner.
You're welcome to come to the house. I don't know.
Uninvited? Just show
You're
up?
uninvited. You're in LA periodically.
Yeah, periodically.
Sometimes Jeff's invited to the house and he sleeps in his car on the driveway.
Yeah. Well, sometimes people don't answer the door because it's too late.
All right. Settle down over there.
Yeah. That wasn't like my plan.
Yeah.
Oh, gentlemen. Well,
Yeah,
Joe, thanks for. I like that. I love talking about the storytelling. I could do that all day.
Yeah, me too. And I always learn something. You think that like we're just doing it for everybody who's watching, but I'm learning something. Jeff has so much to learn.
So much.
Yeah. Ben,
What did I tell you about the next time I'm in LA? What I was hoping you'd do?
with Jeff?
No,
I thought we were allowed to talk
I
about
told
that.
Dan, I said, I want him to show me some inking techniques. I don't know crap about inking.
He keeps that shit secret. He'll do it in front of you, but when you ask him questions, he suddenly clams up.
Oh, it's that
That's
kind of thing.
that's my only secret weapon. Why would I? That's my secret sauce.
I've tried to look over his shoulder for years.
Yeah. I was just over Ben's shoulder. You saw how well that went.
Yeah. It didn't go well.
That didn't go well at all. Well,
No.
everybody, you want to get
He's got to
excited.
file the report after that one.
Look at that. Look at that. If you're watching this right now, feel inclined to follow the directions that we've placed here for you. I mean, I don't want to tell you what to do in life, but
Shove it.
yeah, you can shove it.
Shove that.
Or buy a t-shirt. Maybe you do.
Oh, I had no idea what you were doing. Nice, Dan. Well done.
You're wearing a great one.
I am wearing a fantastic one.
Yeah, they're very cool.
They fit great.
Yeah,
They're excellent shirts, Ben. Thank you.
yeah.
They can email me, bendefeo@gmail.com. A few of you did the last episode. We'll give it a couple of weeks, kind of get people tallied up, and we'll go from there.
Each shirt is $150. and $3 of those dollars go directly to Ben.
Directly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how much the T-shirts are, but Ben will tell you and go on and on and on about it.
They fit great. They're worth twice the price, whatever the price is.
Yeah.
And every third shirt is worn by Dave Johnson. So
Gross.
True.
every
And I got to figure out what to do with this screen and the delay. This sucks.
Yeah, we got to figure some stuff out. You need some high-tech arrangements.
Are we going to try and get Christopher Priest on at some point?
He's the guest right now.
He wasn't.
Look at
He's
that.
just very quiet.
Yeah, he's just very, very quiet and tiny. Very remarkably tiny.
All right.
Hey, so Dan, do you think this Electra looks Greek enough? I mean, you would know.
Let's see here.
Is she yelling? Oh, no, she's not yelling. She's not Greek
man.
enough, Joe.
She is. She does have a Greek face. That looks a little bit like my Elena.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, my
Sorry.
wife, my little wifey poo.
All right, we'll ask her. She'll know.
Elena is. Yeah, we'll have to ask her. If she was here right now, we'd ask her. So we'll ask him. I wish she'd wear that outfit around the house. That'd be nice.
Yeah. You don't want to armor
traditional Greek outfit
Oh, it's very traditional.
Exactly.
Yeah.
and she's handling the traditional Greek weapon, the size.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Very traditional. I wish Elena would do some traditional Greek cooking, but she grew up. She was like, I do not want to be a housewife, so I am not learning how to cook. And that's the first thing, that's one of the first things she told me when we started dating. I'm like, oh, all right.
She makes an outstanding cup of coffee.
No, she doesn't. I make coffee for her every morning. I make Greek coffee for her.
Oh, so you make an outstanding cup of coffee.
I make great coffee.
All right, fair enough.
So I make her coffee every morning. Every morning I make her breakfast. I make her coffee. I make her a full breakfast, and then I also make dinner. And if she's around, she might make lunch. She's accepting it now that she's a mom. She's accepting that she's married to me.
Well, you knew that was going to take some time.
It's only 15 years. I think it's 15 years now, so she's kind of getting the hang of it.
Yeah. She should get credit for resisting that long.
Yeah.
Hey, Dan, can I see the finished Iron Fist?
What if I do this instead?
Well, I mean, I know what I'm drawing.
Hey, Jeff, it's not just a matter of being married to Dan. It's the baggage that comes with him. Guys
Oh,
like
I know.
you.
I know the baggage.
I'm like, I bet your wife loves me, Dan. She doesn't even know me, but she loves it.
She hears me talking about you quite a bit, so.
More than your other friends. She probably likes me more than your other friends.
Dan, that came out great, man.
You know who gets a hall pass anytime he calls to go out is Josh, and he's the worst. Who knows what could happen when you're out with Josh. So
He's charming.
And you'll be safe, mostly.
I'll definitely be safe.
He won't let you get murdered.
Yeah, definitely be safe. I can shoot off my mouth and do whatever. But all right, well, Ben, is there one last question we'll take off?
All right. Joseph Flores wants to know, what's everyone's go-to food to get them excited to draw?
That's a good question.
I know Dan likes kale. And
Yeah, mostly kale.
String cheese.
Right here. Lollipop.
string cheese.
There you go.
I don't have a go-to food. I have go-to coffee. I'll make myself a bunch of cups of coffee each day.
That's good for you.
And right
Is
now,
that up there, Joe?
Coffee's a must.
Joe, what on earth is that behind you? There's no guitar today, but I'm seeing something that is a little disturbing. What is that?
This baby right here?
Yeah, that little tiny, innocent-looking.
Yeah. That's a great kilogram.
I've never seen Hildebrandt draw anything like that.
It's hang on, I get glare. Yeah, it's Greg collects old ventriloquist dummies, like antique ones,
Mm-hmm.
and he likes to paint them. And he sent me this, and it's horrifying and beautiful. I can't stop looking at it.
Did the family say absolutely not? We're not putting it.
Yeah.
Have that in the studio, or?
No. They're with me. They're with me on this.
All right.
They're very loving.
Yeah, but Greg Hildebrand.
He's one of the greats.
Yes. Yes.
Not only is he one of the greats, one of the great gentlemen of comic books. That Greg is immortal. When you see him at a convention, ask him how old he is. Go ahead, I dare you.
I'm scared.
He's always happy, positive, just a guy who loves to draw and paint every damn day.
Jeff, you can take a page out of Hildebrandt's book.
I definitely could.
Yeah, you can get a little surly.
A little.
Yeah.
I'm downright pissy.
Yeah, you can get a little bit of a pissy cheetah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm really having fun with all these little features here. I don't know if
You do great work with the show.
Yeah. Oh, all right. We are approaching the end. I just was notified by Ben. We have a psychic connection.
Is Ben hungry?
Well, probably.
Ben's not hungry. We're just out of beer.
Oh,
Yeah,
no. Oh, problems. All right.
Yeah.
You better get on that.
So,
All right, gentlemen.
so everybody, you can reach me here. Jeff here. Joe, he's always here. He's always checking Twitter.
Yeah.
And then if you really are lonely and you want someone to talk to and you want a good listener.
I'm always.
I am so.
I don't always
You
answer.
guys have no idea.
Never text, write, or reply or retweet anything by Dave Johnson.
Yeah.
I do not advise it. But that's
So
it.
are we doing this again next week, Dan? Are we doing this
No, I
again?
think we're done. I think Christopher Priest ruined us. I think this is the last original Drink and Draw social.
Yeah, I only ask because I keep hearing about the death of the comic industry, and I just want to make sure we're still here.
Yeah,
This might have been one of my favorite episodes.
it's real. We should maybe concentrate on how poorly it's doing. So
Right.
that seems to get everybody's spirits up so nicely.
Exactly.
All right, you guys. Well, we'll be back next week. We will have a guest, but if not, this was actually I had a great time seeing all the drawings and seeing what everybody was doing. So,
Yeah.
Cheers, everybody.
Yeah.
Cheers. Good night, guys.
Take care, guys.
Take care, everyone.
Yeah. All right.
It's ending now. Or